question is there such a thing as a 360-day prophetic year? It's talked about that there is a 360-day year, not 365 like the solar calendar, and not 354 like the Jewish lunar calendar. Rather, 354 or sometimes 355. This past year we had 355 because it was a full day for Cheshvan. But here's the question. In certain calculations concerning certain prophecies about the Messiah, when you look at the book of Daniel and you calculate dates in the 70 weeks prophecy, and you count from, I think it's March 14th, 445 BC, and you count a certain amount of days, I think it's 173, 880, I think it's 880 or 885, or maybe 880. Anyway, it's based on this idea of a 360-day year. And I am exploring and attempting to find out the source of this, the veracity of this, and this PL-89 calendar should, God willing, help me find out, and anyone who wants to find out, in a very simple way, because growing up, mathematics really wasn't my thing, and calculations can get very confusing, but it has to be so simple and has to be so straightforward in the way that I look at my life. And I started this video off in a much different way than I usually started off, because this is the topic at hand. And we've also finished a 360-day year today, if you want to count 360 days. From Rosh Hashanah, day one, Aleph Tishrei of Tafshin Pei He, which was the year that we just completed, and we entered Tafshin Pei Vav, this Rosh Hashanah, that was a few days ago, this past week. And this PL-89 calendar is a reconciler. Reconciliation is the name of the game with this calendar. And therefore it includes many calendars, and it's all in one calendar. It includes the Hebrew calendar that we use, that we determine all of our holidays at Rosh Hashanah every year since who knows how long, back in maybe the 3rd century or the 4th century. It has the Gregorian calendar. It also takes into consideration the Julian calendar, which was the calendar before the Gregorian calendar came around in 1582. It's a Daf Yomi calendar, and I've included the Islamic calendar as well. And today is the sixth day of Tishrei of 5786. And on the Gregorian calendar, it's Sunday, September 28th, 2025. And on the Islamic calendar, it's the 6th day of Rabi al-Thani. And the year, I believe, is 1447. It had something to do with some kind of migration of when Muhammad went from Mecca to Medina, or vice versa. I forget which now. But there's a reason for all of these, and it has to do with the letter count. A verse of exactly 19 letters in the book of Genesis, equidistant lettering count. And 19 is representing the 19-year Metonic cycle, which your Hebrew birthday and your English birthday match up every 19 years. And it's 7 leap years, and the Sod Ibor is also in this. By the way, the word Sod HaIbor, if you spell it just Sod HaIbor without the Yud, like Ayin Beis, but you can spell it without the Yud, Ayin Beis Vav Resh equals 363, which is the gematria of HaMashiach. So there is something connected to the Messiah and this secret of intercalations. And that's what this calendar is. It's the PL-89 Gematriatic Quantum Thought Calendar. And it came around in Elul of 2012. So it turned 13 this year. And I think that's where I'll take it. It's a Gematriatic Quantum Thought Calendar. And today is the first year of this 360. Now here's the thought that I had. And anyone who's into calendars, how the Gregorian matches up with the Hebrew. And the Julian is also connected because it's 13 days behind. And it has something to do with the Hebrew calendar. Like in the next year, I've seen some connections with the Julian calendar to the Hebrew calendar. But that aside, here's the thing. A solar year is 365 days, as we all know. Well, most of us know. 365 days. The Hebrew year is 354 days. But what's the average of that? If you average out 365 and 354, and sometimes it's 355 in a full year, it's going to average out to around 360, right? So that's interesting that if you average out the sun and the moon, which the Lubavitcher Rebbe, not this previous one, but the first one, the Admor Hazaken, the Balatanya, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rishner Zalman of Liadi of blessed memory, said that the meeting of Yaakov and Esav, of Jew and Gentile, it's like the sun and the moon, Shemayim v'aretz, these dualities coming to reconcile, is what the Geula is. He writes this in Parshas Vayishlach. This is when Yaakov meets Esav. So this calendar has that theme in mind. But think about it. If the solar calendar, which is like Esav, the Gregorian, non-Jewish, is 365, and the Jewish is 354, the lunar, it's the base of the months. So it averages out. If they meet each other, conceptually, they're meeting at 360. And 360 is that prophetic number. It's called the prophetic calendar years. That's a thought that I had. I don't know. And to think that the year drifts, I think, why can't you... Here's my question I had. If you go 360, then wouldn't Pesach end up in the winter? No, it wouldn't. Why can't you intercalate it with a 360-day year? Why can't you just intercalate it just the way you do it in a regular Jewish year? What's going to be the problem? So anyway, those are my questions, my comments, my thoughts. But that's aside. This is a way of actually seeing if there's something within current events that are happening. And when I say current events, I'm basing it primarily on the Daf Yomi. When I say, let's say, Bava Batra Daf Kuf, page 100 of Bava Batra, to me that's a current event. And it's because it happened within my lifetime and your lifetime. It happened 360 days ago. It's an event. And it's an event that many thousands of people have learned the same thing. And when I was younger, I was told about this book. I think it's called The Reality Illusion. And there are many interesting concepts there, but one of them was, I think, if I remember correctly, something along the lines of, it's called collective agreement. It's like reality is created by many people agreeing something. And there's a lot of evidence for this in Torah and other places, that when people agree to something, it's a Beit Din, a court of law, people, what have you. There's a verse that says, whatever is bound on earth is bound in heaven, whatever is bound in heaven is bound in earth, etc. So, it's created here. But how far does that go? It could be that they were tapping into that, they were touching upon that when they said Lo B'Shamayim in the story of Taner Vachnai in Metzia 59b, I believe. When the rabbis actually challenged the heavenly voice that said that Rabbi Eliezer was correct, and all the times he's correct. So, how far does that go? Does heaven let humans create even to their own detriment? We see it wasn't good. We see there was a blight, there was various natural disasters, catastrophes that happened because of this challenging. But anyway, getting off topic, the numbers are amazing. Today is day 360, and it's my first day of the exploration of the 360-day prophetic year, and I don't know how this is going to land up in the Talmud, in the Daf Yomi cycles, which are 7.5 years, and how that's going to connect to the 70 weeks of Daniel, and to the Shemitah years, but I have some kind of inkling, some kind of faith that it can be connected in some crazy way that I never expected. So there's a reason to say that this first day, meaning 360 days ago, I wasn't sure if it was 360 full days before today, or if today is day 360, but I concluded that today is the first day of the next cycle. So we finished 360 days yesterday, I think. But even if I'm mistaken, in this calendar, do you see why it's purple and lavender? Because these can be the same box. It's an idea that, see, they're both purple. See, lavender is like, or violet, whatever it is, it's like a lighter form of purple. So if you were to say that these are both purple, you'd be correct. One's just lighter. So they could just become, this purple rectangle. So every two is considered one as a standard rule. So what that means is that if you're off by one, it's okay. There's a margin for human error. So you can be off by one. I have a new appreciation for kol lalim. That's the law in Gematria. It can be off by one because you include the other thing as a sum total of its own thing. It gives you a point. And it also gives you a lot of room for, let's just say, here's a practical example of why being off by one is totally legit and totally understandable, logical, reasonable. Because let's say you experienced something amazing on one day, and it's a shock, and it's good at the same time, it's shocking. So you need a little bit of time for your mind to process that. So you might, let's say, experience something really amazing, and then you didn't really fully appreciate it that day. And only the next day when you look back at the day before, but then it's not that day anymore. But conceptually, in time, this thing makes it that same day. So you get to have it happen to you. Sometimes it takes many days or even weeks. The same is true vice versa the other way too. If something less than great happens, it can be shocking and it takes a little while to process it. A person doesn't catch on right away. So, but at least the next day, I think there's a lot of process that happens already, I think. But if something amazing happens, I'm just going to keep looking at that because we're all hopeful for amazing things to happen soon. So you need a day to process what happened the day before, and yet you want it to be that same day. You want to have the process and the thing happen simultaneously. So it could be off by one. So I'm going to count it here. There's reason to believe that it was 360 full days before today. Rosh Hashanah 1. Today is Rosh Hashanah Tishrei 1 of 5785. Today is 6 Tishrei of 5786. 360 days. And now we're starting the next 360. Many things matched up today on this calendar in an amazing way. The 72 name count completed yesterday at the box 32, which was the 5th day of Tishrei, and on the other reverse way of counting, it landed on the same box as the 72 name counting, which they're counting from two reverse ways. So the fact that they both landed up in the same box is something interesting. Okay, that's that. But today is the 28th day of September, right? September 28th. But in the 72-letter name, it starts from this top right corner. And what's this box number? 28. So we finished a cycle of 72. Basically, 5 cycles of 72 I've counted in this past year, because 5 times 72 is 360. So on this day, I can say with certainty that I've counted 5 exact cycles, 72 days, each day correlated to a name of the 72-letter name of God. And it started at 28, and it goes from right to left, because in Hebrew we read right to left. But the other count is going left to right, like numbers or English, it goes like this. But I started the very first counting of this cycle with the first name of the 72-letter name, which was Vav He Vav, which is box 28 on Aleph Tishrei of 5785. I counted 72 days, another 72 days, another 72 days, another 72 days, and I finished the fifth 72 days yesterday. So, what is interesting about that? What's today's box, as you can see? The box that represents the 6th day of Tishrei, or any 6th day of any month in the second dispensation. It could be 6th day of, it's going to be the 6th day of October pretty soon. It's going to be here too. 6th day of any month in this dispensation is going to be box 1. But what's 1? What's Rosh Hashanah? Isn't it the first day of the year? So how interesting is it that when we hit our 360 count, we came to box 1. We came back to 1 again. But then I thought, okay, see, it has to be this easy. For me to get prophecy and mathematics, it has to be like, you got to really make it super easy. You got to look at the box that says 1 represents the first day of the year. It's like real easy, you know. So look, 1 represents the 6th day of any month, right? But today is the first day of the new year, so it's 1. But last year, okay, it gets better though. Many things matched up. It's so interesting that I really have to think that there's something about this that is very accurate, and I'm demonstrating that right now. Okay, 6 Tishrei, Sunday. Okay, today is September 28th, and the new cycle starts on box number 28. How did that happen? I don't know. I'm not a math genius, but I can tell you that today is September 28th, and I can tell you, because I'm seeing it, that it's box number 28. I didn't make it up. I'm just reporting it. See what I mean? So anyway, on the Gregorian calendar, it's the 28th. The 28th day of any month is always going to be in box number 13. So box number 13, the coordinates is B8, and I forgot to say the coordinates for 1 is B9. So now they're really at B9, yeah. B9 is 1, and B8 is 13. But if you know, anyone who knows just a real, what's the word, perfunctory? A real basic gematria, one of the most famous gematrias of all time, besides for 26 being Hashem's name, is the fact that the word for echad, 1, is 13. Echad, Aleph is 1, Ches is 8, and Dalet is 4. That's 13. It also is love. Love is that all things are one, or to get you become one with the thing. Okay? So, how interesting is it that we came to this 1 because we finished 360 days from Rosh Hashanah last year today, and the 28th day of any month is going to be in box 13. That means that it's the 2 boxes today are 1 and 13. And 13 is echad, and echad is the Hebrew way of saying 1. So we're 1 on 2 levels. We're 1 at the physical number 1, and we're 1 because 13 equals the Hebrew word for 1. When I think about that, I don't want to. It's taking up a lot of time here, so it gets better. Remember that I mentioned that it's a Daf Yomi calendar as well? Well, guess what? Today is Daf Yomi Zvachim, page 14. Okay? What is 13 plus 1? 14. So, on another level, Daf Yomi is... But really, if you want to go deeper, Daf Yomi 14 is actually the 13th page. Because in the Talmud, it always starts on page 2. The Babylonian Talmud, the Vilna edition of our Babylonian Talmuds that we have today, always start on page 2. So that means we're on the 13th page, literally, of Zvachim in the Daf Yomi. But if you want to say but literally the page number is 14. So you can see that 14 is half of 28, but today is September 28th. And we started a new cycle of 28, which is actually box 28. Which brings me to a long-standing mystery as in this calendar. It's too long to explain exactly how I came up with all the numbers. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 8 plus 9, and then 40, and then basically this 28 here. But one of the special, I call them integral numbers. There's certain integral boxes in this calendar that I think it's basic arithmetic, but it's a kind of a complicated arithmetic for me because you don't see it so straight. What I mean is in box number, certain boxes, the date, the calendar date is going to match the box number. It rarely happens. But for example, in the box number 14, the 14th day of any month in any dispensation is going to come out in box 14. But that's very rare. Like the 13th is going to be 5, the 12th is going to be 37, the 11th is going to be 28, etc. Because it goes by 8 plus 9, 8 plus 9. But when you get to the 14th day of the month, it always matches up. Same thing with 30. The same thing with 16. Oh, that reminds me. Going back, because of 16, Rosh Hashanah last year in Daf Yomi, they were on page 100 of Bava Batra. That was the Aleph Tishrei, that was the daf. You can look it up. It's published in the calendar, Daf Yomi calendar. And in that daf, it said that it was talking about the road. How big does a road have to be to the Urim Miklat, the city of refuge, where someone goes after they kill someone by mistake, and they're running down this road, and they derive from a verse that it has to be 30. I think Rav Huna says. I think it's Rav Huna. Maybe it's. But anyway, it says 32 amos, 32 cubits wide, has to be. And they derive it from a verse. But the thing is that that was Rosh Hashanah of last year, 360 days ago. Okay? But remember what I was telling you about 2 boxes becoming 1? See, we're in 1 today, but what's the box before that? 32. The box number 32. And on that page, Rav Huna talked about the width. It says a regular Rosh Hashanah is 16 amos wide. Okay. But the road to an Urim Miklat has to be double that, and they derive it from some verse. But it happens to be that Rosh Hashanah last year, when this daf was being read, and a year later, that is 360 days later, we're on box number 32. I mean, that was yesterday, but again, yesterday is today, right? The same idea. It's close enough. If it's off by 1, it's close enough. It's so specific that it's all right. So I would really like to know how these things are matching up. So I think those things match up. What else did I have here? 1632 event. Oh yeah, it's also the 14th. And this is not going to mean much to most people, but there's a counting system that I started. It's called events, and today happens to be the 14th event. So last month the events matched up with, I think, the days of Elul. The first event was like the first of Elul, the second event, the second of Elul, and as it switched over, and it just happens to be that we finished Horayot and we got into Zvachim at just the right time, that the second event just so happened to catch on to the first daf of Zvachim, which is Bet of Zvachim, so the numbers match. So that means that event 14 is Zvachim 14, right? And then you have the plus, 13 plus 1 is 14, so the Gregorian box, 13 plus 1, plus the Hebrew box, you can see here, that represent both of these dates, are also 14. So something's matching up here, and I'm always in search of the type of mathematics that it would take to explain all of these correlations. But I think I covered pretty much all that I wanted to cover for today.